Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Long Thing. My name is, of course, Etienne. I'm joined by my good buddy, Merlin. Merlin, I have some very good news for you. I'm sure you've seen this because we've been tracking it, but Everything, Everywhere, All at Once won Best Picture at the Oscars. I'm so happy.
I am so happy about that. I didn't think this movie would get this amount of attention that it's getting, like this amount of accolades and praise. It's very, very fun if you see a trailer of a movie and you're like, I like that, I'm going to go for that, I'm going to watch it, I'm probably going to love it. You do, you watch that movie, you love it, and then you find out everyone else does too. It's a great feeling, man. It deserves all the love.
It really did. It really is a good movie, and I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a little bit, it's not the normal movie that would have won, but I think it's good that they showed Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Definitely is a movie that tries to incorporate cinematics for storytelling, and it does it the most. I mean, we'll get to it, but that rock scene especially just proves to me why it deserves the Oscar. I have never in my life been so emotionally moved by a bunch of rocks.
That didn't move.
That didn't move.
Wait, she does move. That's what.
Yeah, that's the emotional part of it. But it's all in subtitles, and it's just squiggly eyes and two rocks, and it's genius. It definitely deserves all the accolades. I'm super happy. I didn't watch the Oscars because it's 4 hours long, and I don't really care for a bunch of backbatting from rich folks telling each other how great their work were. But I am real glad about this one. Also, no one slapped anyone, so there's no reason to watch the Oscars this year.
Yeah, but you never know. You never know when somebody's going to be
That's the thing about reality
so.
TV, man. It can go either way. It can be super boring or it can be very fun. That is true. That's why we have 5,000 seasons and variations of The Real Housewives.
Yeah, I get it. Now,
here's an interesting one from the Oscars, though. So James Cameron refused to go because he didn't get a Best Director's nod for Avatar 2. And I feel...
What?
That is a bit childish, because sci-fi movies never win Oscars. They never, ever win Oscars. And you, the director, James Cameron, we all know it's Pocahontas. We all know it's the story of Pocahontas. And it's the special effects guys that bring Avatar home. It's not any piece of dialogue. Like Quentin Tarantino wins Oscars because his stories are built in a crafty way and the dialogue is thought out and it's all progressive and moves the plot along. And Avatar doesn't have any, they say a lot of things, sure, but it's not an Oscar-winning movie. Or do you feel Avatar deserves it in this day and age, post MCU and where we all CGI now and things?
No, I don't. You mentioned Pocahontas. A few things. Firstly, I think it's Dances with Wolves, not Pocahontas specifically. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. That's the first thing. The second thing, it's what a child of you. Why be so pouty, man? Come on.
In the court of public opinion, you're obviously the best director. Of the top 3 movies that have made the most money ever, he has 2 of them, both Avatars, which is it both Avatars? I think it is. It's both Avatars.
And Titanic is there as well,
That's the one. It's Avatar and Titanic. That's pretty good accolades. Why not be? I guess if you're at the height of your industry, you might want to reach a bit more. I don't know. I just felt there was, when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's childish. Now, I'm glad I didn't spend money on Avatar 2.
Yeah, are you at the height of your industry if you ask like a powdery child?
That's a fair question.
And if you're talking about the quality of Avatar, yes, the special effects obviously are beautiful, and the message is a good one. It's not a bad message, but as you said, there's no dialogue or a piece of acting, something like that really stood out. Even music ones, it's good, it's fine, but it's not iconic in any way. I guess Quentin Tarantino is very memeable. You watch a movie and it gets stuck in your head, and you think about some of the silly stuff you just saw and some of the really cool stuff you just saw, and you wonder, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot there, but it does seem like there's a lot there, so you sit between it. That's interesting, man. That's spicy. Like, is he perfect? No, obviously not. A lot of the stuff is, I don't understand. I don't understand what the point is. Some of it is still fun, and you just go through it. I might, yeah, I have to admit it. I'm not a big Kill Bill fan. Um,
Me neither. To be honest with you, I don't think it's as great as people.
I'm a big Pulp Fiction fan, but that's saying nothing, you know. And then I think the other thing I like the most of him is in Four Rooms. He did a segment that he also played in, and I find that segment actually hilarious. That is some zany stuff.
He is an offbeat director for sure. My favorite is by far Django Unchained. I think everyone's is. That's definitely the best movie he's ever made. Like, it's the best standalone movie he's definitely made. Reservoir Dogs is also good, but it's very early days. I didn't like The Hateful Eight that much. And it's very difficult for me to separate the art from the artist sometimes. That's why it's going to be difficult for me to go back to a Rick and Morty, for instance. But he said The Hateful Eight was going to be his last movie. Then he made a documentary, and then he made Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and now he's done it again. He said he's going to make another movie, his 10th and final film, and it's going to bring together his shared universe, which I didn't know was a thing. I didn't know all the Quentin Tarantino movies are set in the same universe. I feel like that's just something that's being said now.
Evidently is experimenting with a shared universe thing.
Yeah, because it's a bit after the fact, though. You can't now just claim everything is set in the same universe, because there's nothing concretely tying it together as far as I know. But there's also nothing that's proving it concretely. So I think that's what they're going on. They're going, it's vague enough so we can say this and no one can really disprove it.
Yeah, because it's all in the world, you know, it's like in real life. So it would be really easy to connect everything because you don't have any special magic rules or whatever to follow because the rules were those of real life. Yeah. So
that's very true. That might be what they're going for. I don't know. I'll probably see it. I watch all Quentin Tarantino's movies. So I guess we'll get to that. This is like Christopher Nolan movies, man. You just got to watch them. They're craftsmen, and you never know.
That's true. What we were talking about James Cameron, we got them off track there by a wide margin.
A wide margin. I actually just wanted to say this. What he also did recently, and I think this is ridiculous. So Avatar 2 is 190 minutes long, which is incredibly long for a movie. So he said the director's extended cut for Avatar 3 is going to be 9 hours long. 9 hours long is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous thing to say. It's a ridiculous thing to conceive of. If you think about a 4-hour movie like the Snyder Cut, we had to watch that in 2 parts because 4 hours is a long time to sit and watch a movie. Making something 9 hours long, that's just... Do you think he's just saying these things because he's angry now?
I don't know. A 9-hour movie, isn't that just like 2 or 3 movies? What are you doing?
Exactly. It's not... A single movie can't be 9 hours long. It's just... It can't be. What story are you telling? That's a TV show. A TV show can be 9 hours long.
Yeah, like, obviously it can be 9 hours long, but that isn't a good format to showcase a 9-hour long story, though. If you have a 9-hour long story, yes, make it a series or a bunch of movies. That's how you tell that in a better, like, flow, you know.
I agree with that 100%. Do a TV show, Rob. They did say they're going to do some Avatar TV stuff, but I really don't care about Avatar that much, right? Like, I haven't seen the second one yet. I saw the first one back in the day, and it was kind of like, okay, this is cool, whatever. What I do like about Avatar is the only real thing that ever stood out for me is because you see the Na'vi and the people, you don't see them side by side in the beginning. Well, no, you do, like the parts in the Na'vi are all bigger, but when it comes to the action sequences, when they shoot those arrows are like spears. That's the only thing I like about Avatar, really. It's the fact that they fucking impale those soldiers on what is essentially just a bow and arrow for them. I think that's cool.
Okay, good. I have my own things that I like about Avatar. I enjoy the message. I enjoy world tree magic. I'm on board for that. Pretty colors. Pretty colors are pretty.
Very pretty colors, that's true.
Yeah, so, I wasn't mad.
It looks good for what it is. It does. You can't deny that. But it is a little bit, I don't know, it's just a little bit, it's just something about it that feels like a slog to get through. It's not as, like it doesn't, maybe it's just because it's 190 minutes.
I don't know about that. The pace I do enjoy is that of everything everywhere all at once.
Yes, something that moves at a clip, tells a very focused story.
Yeah.
And they definitely thought about it. Man, what a movie. We should definitely talk about that.
Yeah, no, we should definitely. I think yesterday, day before, Honest Trailers released their everything everywhere all at once. They actually got sponsored by D&D Honor Among Thieves, and their next thing will be about John Wick. They're doing an analysis about John Wick. So it is a busy month, actually, for stuff we like.
That's true, because we're obviously getting, because we're still halfway through JohnWickapalooza. Yeah, claims and things. And then we're getting Honor Among Thieves at the end of the month, which I am also excited for. I think that movie is going to be a trip. I don't think it's definitely not going to win any Oscars, but I don't think those guys care either. I think they went out of their way to tell a fun, bard central story, which is still just the best idea. Just the best idea to make your main character a bard.
I love that. I can't wait. It's going to be so much shenanigans.
Yes, hopefully it'll be just quips and shenanigans. It looks expensive though. Did you see the latest trailer? It looks like they really poured a lot of money into this, because fantasy movies are quite niche. Yeah, sure, you have Game of Thrones, but everything else kind of just falls to people that really like fantasy. So committing that amount of money to something like this is, I think it's a show of confidence.
It is. I think it is a show of confidence. I read a thing the other day about how, if you think about it, D&D isn't as niche as it used to be. We got a lot of celebrity support, and we've got Critical Role, and Stranger Things did a thing for us, and all those things. So, bringing out a movie is a lot more accessible. So this might be a good entry point for a lot of people into D&D things. So
that would be interesting to see. We should actually watch that in the months following the movie if there's an uptake, and because they'll definitely. Do you think they'll release like a special edition pack for the movie? Probably. Most definitely.
Always of it goes. 100%.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think we must track that. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe we'll play some D&D as a tribute.
Yeah. I've always a thing of brewing in my head. Hey.
That would be good. Unfortunately, I have some sad news for you as well. So Lance Reddick, he plays the concierge at the Hotel Continental in the John Wick movies, has suddenly passed away at the age of 60. And I think that's real sad. I think he's going to be missed. What a talent.
Yeah, what a class act. Really, really classy guy, man.
He does look like a guy that just holds himself with grace and treats everyone with respect. He does seem like a guy that's just fun to be around, even though he seems so serious.
Yeah, no, it's... And he will be missed. Definitely will be missed.
I saw some interviews with some of the cast members that work with him. Keanu obviously had the most beautiful things to say about him, so that's always nice to see. Not that I think they'll ever badmouth another celebrity. They'll never be like, fuck that guy. But still, though. Yeah. But still, Stranger Things. You mentioned Stranger Things. I read an article where David Harbour said they'll start filming season 5 shortly, and I think they should wrap it up. These 2-3 year gaps between seasons, it was fine up until now. I think they got away with it. I don't think it's going to pay off for them in the long run, because look at what happened to The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian came out, everyone loved it. The Mandalorian season 2 came out, everyone loved it. Mandalorian season 3 dropped, now no one's watching it because it took too long. There was a year gap in between. I think that we're going to see the same thing with House of the Dragon. You can't take 2 year gap between seasons anymore, man. Life just moves too quickly.
Yeah, and the amount of stuff that comes in those times, it's actually insane. If you think about the pace of the MCU, that's 2-3 movies a year, a bunch of shows, a bunch of other stuff. And the House of Mouse, okay, you used to, I don't know. I guess Mandalorian is also House of Mouse, and the other thing you said was House of the Dragon.
Yeah,
with that house there. But man, I don't. I think for me, for the Mandalorian specifically, is that they muddied it with the Book of Boba Fett. I don't like that. it hit me rough that this couldn't be its own story, that it had to be interconnected, and it kind of took away some of the stuff that I liked about The Mandalorian. I mean, just telling a nice Star Wars story without it being Star Wars, which I loved. I fucking loved that concept. And now it needs to be Star Wars. It's an IP, man. It's a franchise. It's a cinematic universe. You make it feel Star Wars, and you cross characters and storylines and all those things. And I have no interest in it. And that's sad for me. I'm going to rewatch the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian before I watch the third one.
Yeah, you should, but you also have to watch the Boba Fett show, because I understand what you mean. I think that's what broke most people, which is interesting, because that what they did there with the Mandalorian is what they're gonna is what James Gunn, it's his plan for the new, whether they're calling it DCU or whatever, and to have characters move in and out of different formats. So you'll have TV show characters that move into the movies, and then vice versa. Some of them will move into animation and then back as well. And I don't think it's going to work. If you look at what happened at The Mandalorian, it's definitely not going to work, because I agree with you. Having that, okay, now we have to watch 2 things to enjoy this thing we enjoyed first. It's just a bit much. We all have lives. Jobs is not the only thing that we do, and having something that interconnected, it's going to, because if you start watching season 3 of The Mandalorian without having watched the Book of Boba Fett, you're not going to know where he is. He has a weapon in the first episode. You're not going to know what that is. I don't think, but I agree with you. Having that muddled and hyper interconnected, it's just not the way to go. It's fun if it's just the MCU, but if everyone is trying to up one another with this interconnected thing, it'll definitely bake out. Which brings us back to the Oscars, because I think it's great that Everything Everywhere All at Once won. Bring us back to where we have single movies, single plot point movies that are made to just tell that one story and not have this character in perpetuity.
It's an excellent multiverse story. It's a story about a multiverse in a single movie. If you had to pitch that at Marvel, their minds would blow. A single movie? No, an entire phase of movies and TV shows.
10 years at least.
10 years at least. And Everything Everywhere All at Once did. And it's in its runtime, it told a very profound story with a really silly vibe about the multiverse. In its own runtime, it told a complete story, and I think it deserves to win. Once again, this will be the second movie that I'll quote as saying, "Look at this movie; it's good. It won awards."
What is the first one?
And it's Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah,
it won an award.
It did won. It is an award-winning movie, that's true. Award-winning trilogy, even. That is. I think it's great. I think it should definitely move back. Because you're right, multiverse is a heavy concept, and we're not dumb. And it does feel like the MCU is treating us a little bit stupid. They're going like, we have to ease people into this. No, we get it. We've all been watching Rick and Morty for years now. You can do a whole multiverse in a single 20-minute episode, and we get it, and then you can move on. And that's, I think, what Everything Everywhere All at Once is. It never talks down to you. It's like you can rewatch it if you didn't get it the first time. It's very nice in that regard, but it never talks down to you. But I also feel like it's very clear and concise in its world building. I absolutely love the idea in Everything Everywhere All at Once that in order to jump realities, you have to do something wacky in this one, which you would never do, to activate that strand. Which is that's all you need really for a movie to work, is you need a single piece of information or storytelling device that ties it together, and that's enough. And then, of course, they just added this very emotional story on top of that, and it works. We didn't need 3-4 movies explaining to us how the multiverse jumping works before we get to this point. And that's why I think the MCU falters a bit, because we've had 2 Ant-Man movies explaining what happens in Quantumania, and nobody cared, right? Because they could have just done Quantumania in the beginning. We would have gotten it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but you can't. Okay, this isn't on the topic of them talking down to us. You can't start with Quantumania. That is that power scale is insane.
Yeah, but that's not the best example. But think of like a Back to the Future, for instance. Back to the Future doesn't talk down to you ever, and it's not Yeah, that's not the best example either. Let me pick up another one. I don't know why,
but I do hear you about everything, everywhere, all at once, not talking down to you. I do like that the single. They have a bit of lore though, because yes, you have to do something improbable to activate the strand of the particular universe where you have a certain skill that you now can access and use. And why would you want to use this? Because your daughter has created a multiverse destroying thing, you know, and wacky.
it is crazy.
But but they bank on. I think they bank on relatable relationships and emotions more than they do on the technicality of their multiverse story. So the everything bagel is silly, but you understand the despair she's talking about. You know, you get that part about it, and you understand the miscommunication in families and living, you know, past each other and all those kind of like little relatable things. And I think that built and drove their story on like these things rather than what the MCU had to do, which was, okay, this guy has this power and this is how he uses his power to solve the conflict. You know, the conflict is rarely, I would say, an emotional one. There are examples, and that's real nice. But usually the conflict is resolved by punching the laser
or holding back the laser long enough for your laser to win. That is true.
Yes, exactly. That's how the MCU works. There is variation. It's a lot of movies. No single rule is going to apply to all of it. It's a lot of different people worked on it. So it's you know, it's a tapestry more than anything. But the point is, everything, everywhere, all at once didn't resolve its conflict by her having an everything bagel or a bagel slicing laser or something like that. Yeah, she didn't resolve the bagel by having more power. She resolved the bagel with a heartfelt speech, you know, emotional conflict resolved by an emotional act, an emotional climax. That's why I love that movie, man.
I agree with you 100%. That's a very fair point. But we are still in JohnWickapalooza, so let's get back to that. It's not everything, everywhere, all at once a palooza, which we will get to. We'll definitely talk about that movie, especially now that it's won an Oscar. I think both of us love it so much. We'll definitely get around to it. Anyway, so this week for John Wick, we had so much fun looking at what came before John Wick, that we'll look at something that came alongside John Wick. So what we're looking at this week is very much John Wick inspired. It almost feels to the T with one, and you mentioned it, one key aspect differs, where John Wick doesn't want back in, but this guy does. We're looking at Nobody.
Yeah, that John Wick doesn't want in, but nobody does.
He wants back in so much. I love this movie. I remember the first time I watched it, I went in with the mindset, all right, because even the trailer, you get the idea this is John Wick inspired. But then when I sat down and watched it, this movie has such a calm feel to what is essentially hyper violence.
Okay. Yeah, it does have a calm. It is a calm, kooky feel about it, you know.
Yeah, like nothing's really at stake. No one's in real danger, but it is like people are dying. It's super violent.
I think for me, there's like two parts to it, because this movie, its tone and its themes are kind of muddled. When we rewatched it, I'm like, there's some stuff going on here that's, you know, ain't right. And you pull the trick off nicely, director man. But I see it. I see the rabbit in the hat. So what was my point, man?
Is that it's a little bit of storylines.
Yeah. So the first part of it is very realistic and it's very grounded. Even the bus fight, up until the bus fight, I'll confidently say like it's a real grounded action. that bus fight does a lot of the things that I would call Wickian in this action movie. There's, the clean action, a nice song, nice choreography, and good choreography. That segment is excellent, and I'm along for it all the way. And in that segment where he fights on the bus, we get the main theme as well, because if I'm not mistaken, the song that's playing there is him singing. He's as the singer going, "I gotta be me." So it's him getting into violence for the sheer unholy delight of it. It's like part of his character that he must have violence to be fulfilled. Yeah,
because he even starts loving his wife more. He's like, he's super open and honest with her all of a sudden, which is a bit contradictory towards a character like this, because you would assume someone like this would be closed off, but he's not. The more violent he becomes, the more emotionally available he is. He's immediately like, "I just miss you. I wish we could talk a bit more." He's just fucked up all those guys in the bus, and he's just like, "I just want to be closer to you." And he doesn't do that before. He just does his chores and he's got to work. So I get what you're saying. Is for this character, it is a little bit more subtle than John Wick, but this guy is also very evil. Like, he's not a good... maybe you can't say that. Alright, so his job, what he did for the military or for the intelligence agencies that he worked for, does get me a little bit confused, because as far as I understand it, he was solely responsible for taking out people that stole from governments in shady ways. So like espionage and industrial sabotage, things like that. So where did he get all those skills from to take on multiple guys if he only had single targets? But that's just nitpicky, I feel, as well, because it doesn't really matter to see him, because it's in the planning. He plans ahead. What he also does that John Wick, I'm getting a little bit off topic now, but what he also does that John Wick doesn't do is the violence in Nobody is a lot more visible. It's not as because John Wick is a ballet. It's very fluid. He walks, like, you move with John Wick through the action sequences, where a lot of this is stationary. It's him in one place fighting off a bunch of dudes, and just taking shots. He also gets hurt a lot more, which I really like, but he seemed very unfazed by it.
That was a lot.
Yeah, let me just bring it back. So the first thing what I like about this character is how emotionally available he becomes after committing these acts, and the more he gets back into this world of violence, the calmer he becomes. And the other thing I really like is the visceral, because at first when they come to his house, after the bus fight scene, they try and murder him in his house, he doesn't use any of the guns that they bring with him. It's all... He kills one guy with a pot kettle. He strangles another guy with his own gun handle, which is just... That's badass, man.
That is pretty badass. I think the improvisational style of Nobody, that it lends a lot of fun to it. I do enjoy that. So you mentioned the violence is a lot more visceral as well. John Wick is very clean now that I think about it. It is what makes John Wick scary is that he is very efficient. How he feels about the killing is kind of not the point, But the point is he does it well. He is gonna kill. Well, Nobody, I think maybe for the first part, you're not sure if he can win. He doesn't walk over everyone in the first half of the movie, it's...
Yeah, it takes him a bit of time to warm up as well, because that bus fight, he gets pretty wrecked, and then he becomes more efficient as the fight goes on. By the end of it, he's just... But when he rips off that pipe in the bus, it's like, yes, okay, this guy obviously has some skills. But let's talk about the mystique around this guy, because they do the same thing that John Wick does. They introduce things, they say things beforehand, and then you see the effect of it afterwards. I think for me, the first thing that stands out is the people that break into his house, and everyone accuses him of being this chump. He didn't stand up for his family, and he's just, I didn't want to cave that person's skull in for pointing an empty gun at me, and I thought, that's badass. That is good storytelling. That is showing your character has this, like, even in this, because most people, I would freak out. Someone broke into my house, I wouldn't know what to do. This guy was in complete control the whole time, and he just lets them go. and then he just takes this societal backlash. Well, it's not just, it's from his family. His son gives him crap about it, and he just takes that on his chin, and I think that's great. I think it works.
From everybody. Okay, so, and that first part of it, this is why this story is so muddled, because one of the first things is that house robbery goes nowhere. That story like kind of dead ends.
Quickly.
Which really, it annoys me. But you see in that first part, it does help to characterize the fact that he requires the respect of his family and society in general. But yeah, so his family doesn't show him respect except his daughter. His neighbor talks a bunch of shit. His brother-in-law talks a bunch of shit. His father-in-law is kind of neutral about it, you know.
But you do still get the idea that he thinks he's soft.
Yeah, you do get the idea he thinks he's soft. And that's, you know, the first part of it is just hammering down the fact that this man gets no respect. He's a nobody. And what he craves is the respect.
Yes, because he's done these things. He's like done. Yeah, he's done good things, sort of, maybe. He's essentially a government-sanctioned assassin, though. But still, though, it works. That's our favorite types. The Bourne movies have proved it to us. We love us some government assassins.
Yeah, but I think in the first segment of Nobody, you don't think about him as a government assassin, because that first segment, they really drive home the routine and monotony in his life, like the mundanity of his life, which is relatable. I think this is where Nobody also contrasts with John Wick, because somebody killing my puppy I would feel like I would want to go on a murder rampage, and if I had the skills, maybe even more so. You know, if I was a skilled at John Wick, yeah, maybe I'll go kill the Russian mafia, all of it, just because. But on the other hand, that's insane. That's an insane way to go about things, you know.
A little bit, yeah. It's quite an overreaction.
Yeah. But I'll leave it for that, because, you know, Joseph did kill a puppy. He does deserve to die. Okay, so in my judgment, just putting it out there, he's a villain, you know, he's a trash person. But John Wick isn't too relatable. There's a lot of things that are relatable. The grief John Wick feels is relatable. Wanting a quiet, normal life, I guess, is relatable. Being a super efficient murder bot is not that relatable to a lot of people.
To most of us.
Yeah, but missing the trash every week, hell, that's relatable.
Very relatable.
And I think this could be said like Nobody is kind of the working class John Wick.
Ooh, that's nice to say. That feels right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all the things I had.
I think the only thing that
so many Rumbo
works a little bit against Nobody is the action sequences do drop off a bit, especially after the first bus one. They don't spend a lot of time. When he takes on them, when he burns that money, that whole sequence is very quick, and it's almost like you get a highlight reel of what he did. You don't actually get to see him planning or working his way through it, which kind of works in the way like this guy was never really worried. He doesn't have to go to those extremes. You don't really see John Wick plan ahead either, but you can assume you see him looking at a place first, and he scopes out the guards, especially in the first one. You see a bit more of it. At the end of the first one where he's sniping those guys, that obviously had to take a little bit of planning. But Hutch just kind of shows up and does it and then leaves, which works, but it's not as cinematically enjoyable as having a guy, you know, mercilessly murder tons of dudes on his way to burning the cash, which again he also does, but you don't get to see all of it. It's not boring. I think again it works. It's just if I had one, maybe they could have just fleshed out the action a bit more.
No, I'm gonna be much harsh than you are. It becomes garbled nonsense by the end. Okay, by the end, when you also have him and his dad and his brother like fighting alongside each other, nothing is technically correct. It is garbage. They're just doing stuff, throwing stuff, and saying one line of things exploded and shooting him. it's compared to the bus fight. Man, it's like they begin Wiccan and then just go with us afterwards. I don't know what to say about it other than that.
I hear you though, it does. By the end of it, you're almost like, yes, okay, let's wrap this up.
Yeah. And especially because at this point, the story has shifted. The inciting incident for our story, there might be two in this one. The first one is his house getting invaded. Okay, so that is the first inciting incident, and arguably the one that you pick up first. There we learn that they took the kitty cat bracelet. He goes out and he's going to get this kitty cat bracelet. He finds the people, and what he already knew is shown to us is that these are not psychopaths or monsters or anything. These are desperate people. And then they never show up again in this entire movie. They have nothing to do with anything after this. He gets on a bus back, and on that bus he starts a fight, and that fight is, the true inciting incident, where he proclaims I gotta be. And after that, he fights the Russians, and for no real motivation on his side, he just, I guess fights when he needs to. There's no the reason for him is to fight. That's after this point. He doesn't need to get revenge on the people that broke into his house. He knows they don't have the kitty cat bracelet. That has been resolved for the most part. And then he picks a fight with a bunch of guys. I would say maybe nobly deserved. It's a fun fight nonetheless. And then after that, they retaliate. And then he retaliates. And, it goes like that back and forth. I think that's why it kind of fizzles at the end. I don't know, man.
I get what you're saying. It doesn't feel... It is. No, you're definitely correct. It does feel a little bit like... this guy is very reactionary. Like John Wick is also reactionary in the beginning. He reacts the first time with the dog being killed, obviously. But everything after that point is very much focused him... Because John Wick especially goes from being a victim to the perpetrator. Where this guy goes from being the victim to staying the victim almost. He doesn't... Well, then again, he does show up and burn all that money, which is...
And that's the thing. He burns down the money because they don't want to leave him alone, and he needs to send them a message and all of these things. And none of those things have anything to do with the kitty cat bracelet at all. At nothing. They forget about the kitty cat bracelet, and it's just pops up under the couch. And that is arguably hilarious, but...
That might be what they were going for, yeah.
Yeah, but that's kind of the point, is at the start of the movie, you think it's going to be Wiccan. Like, he needs the respect of his daughter, and this kitty cat bracelet is important for that. And he's willing to go punch a bunch of people for that, okay? That is very Wiccan. And then by the end, he fights a bunch of Russians, all the fun of it, and accidentally finds the kitty cat bracelet. Those are two different stories.
That is it. Maybe what happened here is they went, all right, how can we separate ourselves while still using the core idea or ideas of John Wick? In that way, because maybe they were going for... Because it makes a lot of sense what you say. This guy obviously does it for the fun of it. He gets off on it. So by the end of it, or maybe the kitty cat bracelet story was just to show you that he only needed a little bit of a push. Because he went to that house with the clear intention of fucking up that couple. And then when he sees the baby, it's like, oh, I can't do this. These people are obviously struggling. So then when he gets the guys on the bus, he literally says, when God shuts one door, he opens up another. So he's like, I wanted this fight and I couldn't get it. But luckily these serial rapists and drunkards showed up. Now I get to fuck them up. Maybe, but still, by the end of it, it's almost like, wait, what's happening here? Why is he here again? Where in John Wick you never tell. In John Wick it's always, okay, we know.
Joseph. He locks onto this one specific thing, and all his negotiations and all his actions moves him closer to Yosef. And if you are on the way, you will die. Until Yosef dies, and does he chase Viggo? Does Viggo chase here? He goes after Viggo.
Well, so Viggo captures him first, then he gets out and he murders all his henchmen with the help of his buddy, Willem the friend. And then he corners Viggo, and then he tells Viggo, if you give up your son, I'll let you go. Viggo gives up Joseph, and then Viggo just can't let it go. So by the end of it, it's Viggo that chases him.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure before I complete my statement. Okay, see, that's the thing. John Wick would have been, in his mind, done after killing Joseph, and that's why he doesn't give a speech or anything, because it's done. The job's done. Viggo goes after him because the rule, as explained by Winston, is that if you dip so much as a pinky into this pond, you will be dragged back into it. I'm going to say that like line so much by Parabellum, you won't even know. Because that's the thing. Because he got back in, Viggo could pull him or could look for him, could chase him. And that's after Wick killing Joseph. Wick's motivation becomes getting back out. That is what the second and the third movie is about. Is he just wants out. Doesn't care about anything else you guys are saying. He just wants out.
All the politics over. John Wick is really set up from the beginning perfectly. I honestly wonder, because I haven't seen any interviews or anything, if they had this idea from the beginning, or that they just focused and had so much passion for each individual project that it ended up being. Because I find this with writers sometimes, when you do a writer's course, they'll tell you, all right, so the blue curtains that he references is actually in reference to the childhood trauma or whatever. And I honestly feel like most of those things in the writing process work out by accident almost. And then because we love it, we go, this obviously means something, and this means something, and this gotta mean something. Where I think the person writing it didn't necessarily have that intention going in. Stephen King also says it is in his on memoir book that if you write and you write something constantly, it will take shape on its own after a while. But John Wick just proves that to me, because everything from John Wick all the way through is everything tracks. Everything can be tracked. Love me some John Wick, man. JohnWickapalooza, what a great time to be alive.
What a great time to be alive. I'm actually really excited for John Wick 4. What do you think it's going to be about? I'm getting off topic here, but
I'm very excited for John Wick 4. So the reviews are out. The consensus is it's the best action movie ever made. Got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. 93% on Rotten Tomatoes for an action movie has got to be a record, bro, because they don't usually score that high. But yeah, best action movie ever made is what they're saying. Guess we'll see. I think it might be on par. These guys obviously care a lot. Keanu Reeves is in it. He doesn't mind. He'll break all his bones for John Wick. I don't know. I think the last one is going to have to, because ending a trilogy is obviously, that's the sweet spot. That's what we want. You have a catalyst for the first movie, an escalation in the second movie, and a conclusion in the third movie, where they obviously pushed it one movie extra. So I do feel that there's going to have to be some sort of conclusion to number 4. But we also already know that they're shooting number 5 back to back, which is tricky. Because if you close off, and if you look at the trailers, it does look like they might close off John Wick's story with number 4, which means they're introducing a new character in number 5, which is never a good idea. I don't know.
Except if you're 007.
Yes, except if you're 007. But then you still have...
Yeah, you're the same.
It's the same guy. Yeah. They can maybe do something like that because, again, in John Wick, what they've allowed themselves is John Wick is not the only one with this level of skill. He's not Captain America and everyone else is foot soldiers. He's like, there are rivals to him. The first one is the Russian security guard, gives him a good run for his money. And the second one, he has 2 polar opposites. And by the third one, we have Mark Dacascos who literally tells him we're both masters of death. And that fight is quite intense. So yeah, they definitely left themselves some room to introduce a new John Wick-esque character. I just don't know how you're gonna do that. Because what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to introduce a character that is tied to John Wick somehow, for him to be. And you can't do Apprentice. Like, John Wick's not training anyone. Let's be honest. He's not taking the time out of his day to care about anyone else. He's literally a walking psychopath. You can do. I've always thought that they should do a little bit more about the cop thing in John Wick, because we have this very great underworld law that they have the gold coins. But there has to be. Why are they operating in the shadows if there's no one opposing their power? So, yeah.
What's the reason for the secrecy?
Exactly. If there's seemingly no opposite. So I've always thought, introduce a character, because you see John Wick didn't grow up an orphan by himself. He was part of a community in the Villa Rusia. So if you introduce a character like a brother type character almost, because they keep referring to the thing that he did in the beginning to get out and what an impossible task that was. So I've always thought it would be cool if you introduced like a cop-esque character. That is John Wick's brother type friend from when they were childhood, from when they were children, and this guy helped him originally. And then you can introduce, like, there are cops, there are like opposites for this criminal underworld, because I think if they don't do something like that in the fourth one, they'll definitely have to buy the fifth one, because then it's becoming the Empire, this seemingly unstoppable, and the Empire doesn't operate. Palpatine operates in the shadow, but the Empire doesn't. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think? How do you think do you think they'll end it first and foremost? And what would you like from number 4? Would you like an end to John Wick?
I would actually like it with 5.
Is it?
Yeah, that's a nice number. That makes 3 the middle one, and then I can live with 3.
Yes, you really hate Parabellum.
I wouldn't say I hate it. I just think it's a lot longer than it should be.
That is a lot longer than it should.
If it's funny because I love Wiccan action, and Parabellum is non-stop action, and that bored the shit out of me. And there's interesting things I like in Parabellum because they expand the law and they have a little fun with stuff and, push things a little bit. That's nice. I like those kind of things. But there's literally a segment that just blurs in my head because it's just this non-stop like action sequence. Nothing stands out properly in my head. This is a good example of too much honey around the mouth will make you sick. And that's how I feel about Parabellum. Hopefully, but it's apparently good, as you just said. It's course corrected, so I'm excited about that. Getting it back a little bit back on character would be good. I would enjoy that. And probably because he, in the last yarn at the end of Parabellum, Winston kind of cut ties, but it's not like obvious if it's the plan or not. Am I right? I'm not sure.
I also have that feeling because in the trailers for number 4, they seem very chummy. And knowing John Wick, why didn't he immediately shoot Winston in the face upon seeing him?
Yeah. No, I think that double crossing him, something like that seems right to me. John Wick. What is going to happen? Now when I think about it, will Wick go after the high table, to dismantle it? Will he get another impossible task to get out? Because he is with the Bowery King right now. They're going to be teamed up and they're going to share a motivation. And the Bowery King wants Hannah revenge. Served cold, thank you very much. Oh, so he probably will direct Wick? Oh, I don't know.
This is difficult to say. Well, I guess we'll have to go watch it. We're forced to go watch it then.
This is what I think is going to happen in John Wick 4. I'm going to go watch it.
Fair enough. Obviously, the thing that they're leaving with John Wick now, because John Wick also allows for millions and millions of prequels. You can do recasted prequels as well. So you can get a guy that just looks like a younger Keanu Reeves. If it ever gets to that point, I think it'll be done. Because that's never good if they do prequels but they recast But they could do that. They could do it well. Who knows?
So I would like to find out what the impossible task is.
That's my thing, man. Like, give me that.
We are medium curiosity about it. Maybe it's better that it is so mystical, like the briefcase, in Pulp Fiction, that you don't find out what's inside. Or what happened in Budapest if you're Hawkeye and Black Widow. Maybe it works better because the audience doesn't know.
It could be. It is a classic, but if you're doing 4 or 5 movies, then you're going to have to explain it at some point.
Yeah, it's somewhere there has to be someone talking about it.
They've hinted at it a few times because the marker that he has to honor in number 2 is also tied to that impossible task. Antonio tells him, you came to me and I helped you with your impossible task, but he doesn't say what he did. So there's definitely, maybe they'll just do more of that. Maybe they'll just introduce more things that add up, and then after a while we'll be able to piece it together ourselves without actually ever being shown what happened. Because the only real thing you can show us for the impossible task is just another John Wick action sequence, and that might ruin it.
Okay, so what would be interesting thematically is if he has to repeat it or do something that rhymes with the impossible task. So the impossible task is only revealed when something else comes up. Somebody comes to him and is like, well, I can help you, but these things, this and this and this. How it happened the first time, kind of deal. Like rhyming that, I think that might be interesting.
That could work. That could work, definitely.
What?
But yeah, here we are, halfway through our JohnWickapalooza. Very excited for number 2. I can't wait to talk about number 2. Number 2 is my favorite so far. I think number 4 might be best, but that might just be my excitement, to be honest.
Yeah, I flip and can't wait to see where they're going with it. Especially if people say it's good, then I know, at least I hope that it is. They're not talking a bunch of bullshit, and we get back on track with some proper John Wick. That would be great.
In the meanwhile, however, what are you watching, reading, playing?
Oh, so we haven't spoken in a bit. So in the meantime, I've actually been a little bit busy. I've finished the first 2 books of the Harry Potter series. So I reread Philosopher's Stone. I read it as a child, but I didn't read anything else. And then I finished up Chamber of Secrets as well. And let me tell you, what a hoot, actually.
Do they hold up? Those first 2 are very kids' books, eh?
It is a delight. Philosopher's Stone, still, it's top notch. I give it a golden star. Really, I do. 10 points. Philosopher's Stone. Definitely, it's excellent. Best fantasy ever written? Maybe not. I wouldn't be the judge of that. But good, solid writing techniques and the way things are set up and paid off is satisfying, and it works out real nice. I do enjoy it. I give Philosopher's Stone a lot of shit because the entire climax is, riddles and challenges must you face if you are ever to leave this place. Which I think is silly if you're talking about a thing that can make a Dark Lord immortal. Put that in a hole, and you cover that hole with something strong. In Minecraft, it would be obsidian. You cover it with obsidian. That's not proper for our world, but I will put it in Minecraft. Hide that fucking thing. What are you talking about having it? If 3 first years can get to it. But obviously that was Dumbledore's fact, is that, Voldemort wouldn't suspect 3 first years, and Harry Potter can literally kill him by touching him, so that's probably a good idea. That's a good thing. Send Harry Potter as a living weapon to Voldemort in the direction of Voldemort, and he dies.
He's also just a child, so he endangered those children. Oh my God.
They do a lot. A Chamber of Secrets, that one is flippin' and crazy. There's a giant snake basilisk living in the castle. This book, Chamber of Secrets, this book makes me question, why the hell is Slytherin part of Hogwarts? Okay, why is it a house in Hogwarts? It's not Grishake. Yeah, it sounds like some kind of shady party, man. They're shady. They're a bunch of shadies.
Yeah, but they're so powerful. You can't be mean to them because they might just, kill you.
Yeah, they're bullies, It's an entire house of bullies. And as I said, Chamber of Secrets, it is written a lot like that. All the representation. There's no redeeming factor for Slytherin. They're just dumped on these two first books, and especially in Chamber of Secrets, where the bad guy is a snake. Okay, it's flipping crazy. Between the two, Philosopher's Stone is definitely, I give it a shit for being riddles and challenges, but Fox Ex Machina, the second one's ending, that came out of nowhere. I don't like it.
It's a bit bullshit. You're referring specifically to the Phoenix, I think, right?
Yeah, Fox the Phoenix flying in with the sorting atom, it just having the sword of Gryffindor.
Those are two coincidences.
Where did any of this come from? You talk so much about Slytherin and the basilisk, but you've got to talk about the sword. Okay,
that's true. It wasn't set up at all. But don't they say that the sword is missing in the beginning and that's it? Like no one knows where the sword is?
No, we will.
I don't remember. But that's not enough. You can't say that. Oh, look, this thing found it for us. How lucky.
That I didn't like. I'm not saying don't use the sword. I'm just saying the sword was barely part of this conversation. Okay, why? But other than that, it's actually bad. It's not bad. I must say that our trio they aren't good detectives. They get things wrong so much. They thought Snape was Voldemort,
They did think.
Yeah, and then it's like, screw. And then in Chamber of Secrets, they think Draco is the heir of Slytherin. And meanwhile, it's a ghost in a diary, man. Wheel.
But they're also like 14 years old, Sherry.
Yeah, man. So I finished those. I'm taking a little break before I start Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm reading Hamlet. I don't think I would call that a break, actually. Harry Potter might be a break between Shakespeare gods. It's awful.
Why are you reading Shakespeare?
Because I've never read Hamlet.
Fair enough.
I talk about Hamlet like I've read it, but I haven't. So now I'm reading Hamlet, firstly, indecipherable. I would have to have someone explain literally what they mean. I get the gist of the story for the most part. Hamlet's father is killed and he is contemplating should he take revenge, and he thinks all kinds of plots. And then he kills a guy by accident and he has to go away, but then he comes back, but then his love is killed. So that's where I am as well. It's in the fourth act. Yeah, I'm on the fourth act. It's rough, man. I think my Shakespeare after this one would be a comedy. If I'm going to read a Shakespeare after this one, because I might go in a different direction for my reading list. But after Hamlet, it's Prisoner. It's going to be Prisoner of Azkaban. Beyond that, what I've been watching is Bob Ross. I've really gotten into Bob Ross. Have you ever watched a Bob Ross Joy of Painting? Oh my word. How say, so no-fied. If you find anything in this world that you can do with the serenity that Bob Ross paints a painting, you man, stick to it. Get on that. That man understands the path to enlightenment, I'm sure. No, it's hella it. And then he pulls a stunning picture out his ass in 30 minutes, okay? And then he wouldn't say the word ass as well. He is too wholesome, okay? I know.
I've seen the memes, obviously, and I don't know who Bob Ross is, but yeah, that's the recommendation. I've never actually went and looked at it, so I might just do that. I thought it was just paint by number tutorials, but if it's a thing.
Yeah. He starts with a blank canvas, and then in 30 minutes creates a landscape. He uses all kinds of special techniques to get through the painting fast. And then he has this encouraging tone that you should join him, You can do it. Mistakes aren't really mistakes. All these kinds of things that he says that you're like, yeah, I can't be. You can't fuck, but it makes you feel like you can.
That sounds cool. I'll definitely go check that out. Bob Ross Presents. Is also making a movie about him. Owen Wilson's going to play him. So that's cool.
That might be interesting.
It just might. Reading Shakespeare, man. I've never liked Shakespeare. That's a hectic read, bro. I do like the classics myself as well. You know this? But Shakespeare's just a bit too far back. The English is just too old. It's the same with, I guess, Wuthering Heights is a great book. I'll never know because I don't understand it at all.
So Shakespeare being long back, do you know how much of the modern vernacular Shakespeare coined? It's rough, actually. He kind of coined hundreds of words all by himself. One of them is road. I saw an infographic that had road amongst the other things that he coined. He coined the word road, man.
That is insane. You mean to say that he was the first person to use it?
Yeah, see, I think maybe...
That's crazy.
I'm not sure about this. I'm talking about math, but I think it comes from roots, like from Latin in that way. The word in English, road, he created. I will have to do my research, and I might come back to that when I have finished Hamlet, and I'll tell you about all the things we say today that Shakespeare coined. Is actually very important for English.
That would be great. I would love to hear that, because I know he invented a bunch of words, but I didn't know it was like hundreds of them. I thought it was like a few.
You know, it's a lot, and sayings and phrases that we have that you think, oh, you're like, oh, where did this come from? And then it's Shakespeare. Shakespeare made it up, and we've been quoting it since then.
That's quite a legacy for a writer to leave behind.
Yeah,
that's insane. I've been reading Oscar Wilde, A Picture of Dorian Gray, very slowly, which is shocking because it's not a very long book. Also very old English, but that guy, yes, Oscar Wilde said some of the most beautiful things, man. When he arrived in America, this is a true story. When he arrived in America, they asked him at the declaration office, do you have anything to declare from your trip? And he said, nothing but my genius. And I love that. If I live my whole life, I just want one opportunity to repeat that. I love me some Oscar Wilde. And then I've been trying to read fantasy. I don't know why, but for some reason I just can't stick to it. I read the first two Raymond E. Feist books, couldn't finish the third one. I've never finished the Lord of the Rings book. I get to the first song and then I'm like, oh, no. And I think because those movies are so good, I already have this idea. Because the fun thing about reading is you get to impose your own, your own creativity on it. The characters can look like it. But with Lord of the Rings, you can't.
I'm experiencing a lot of that with reading Harry Potter because obviously I've seen the movies before. So certain parts of it, Harry is not Daniel Radcliffe in my mind, not at all. They don't, and Ron is not Rupert. They don't fit. Hermione is Emma. They've overlapped. Snape is Alan Rickman.
Yes, I agree with that.
But McGonagall has like her own spin in my head as well. So there's like these drift on the characters. Some of them I see like they're in the movies and some of them I don't. Same thing for Lord of the Rings, actually. The Hobbits, when I read the books, I think about them a lot more in the way they're illustrated, drawn, rather than how they looked in the movies. And a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff, the illustrations inform my imagination a lot more than Lord of the Rings. But sorry to hear you're having a hard time with fantasy.
I don't know why. Well, you like Patrick Rothfuss, right? You've read some of his stuff.
Oh, I love Patrick Rothfuss.
Maybe I should give that a chance because you were the one that told me like the magic system is fucking on point, but it's also the way that he writes.
Oh, it's the way that he writes. The magic system, the sympathy system, excellent system of magic. It's one of those that you can grok it immediately and then imagine how you would use it in your own life as well. It's very nice in that way. But he writes in a poetic manner. He has so much fun with writing. It's insane. There's a saying in the world that the characters say, there are 7 words you could say to make a woman love you. but they never say what the 7 words are. But the main character and his love interest, every time they meet up, the first 2 sentences they have are 7 words each. Those kind of things, you know, it's flippin' great. I love it. It's such a lyrical, musical quality to his stories.
Maybe I should give that a try, because that sounds delightful. Not to
It is
use your phrase.
delightful.
And I do want to say in my own defense, I've read Pratchett. I've read a decent amount of Pratchett. I don't consider that fantasy. It's straight up comedy. Because that guy, he was just in it to tell the jokes, let's be honest.
He was really there to tell the jokes. He was there to talk it.
It's more satire than it is anything else.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Love me some Pratchett. Yes, the God of Magic is probably... I like the opera one though, Masquerade. I really like that one, especially for Death.
Oh, I haven't read Masquerade yet. My favorite so far is Small Gods I love, and Hogfather I love a lot.
And then we all love Good Omens, obviously. Everyone loves Good Omens.
Yeah, Good Omens is hoot now. It really is.
All right. I think that's it. If you're excited for John Wick 4, please leave us a comment down below. Talk to us about it if you disagreed or agreed with anything that we said here. And if you feel the same way about Harry Potter, then down below you go. Merlin, thank you for joining me. As always, lots of fun. I'll see you next week.